So, good afternoon or good morning, everybody. Let me just check the time. Yes, it's good afternoon. I'm super excited, and the reason why I'm super excited is I wonder how many of us have actually taken quiet time to realize that where we are now, right, we are at a place where the world is going to change significantly, right? We are going to have our kids' not even wondering what a sling telephone is. They are not even going to wonder what a mobile telephone is. They're going to have no cooking clue what the technology is that we're using today. And we, the people in this room, we are part of that, right? So I'm Nola Dlamini. I used to work for Vodacom. I'm no longer with Vodacom, and none of my views in this presentation is necessarily the views of Vodacom. So since we've got that out of the way, now we can get going. Okay, so you might wonder, why is there ramp models on my cover slide, and do I have aspirations of being the lady in the front leading a digital transformation? No. So digital transformations actually is very close to ramp models and fashion. Attractive, impractical, and expensive. So any executive who has been asked to, define exactly what is meant by digital transformation, I think has come up with what we would call a mirage, which is an optical illusion based on essentially hot air, right? We can't drive any transformation based on hot air. And this is exactly why I decided, I would like to leave my job at Vodacom, in which I was very happy, being impactful, but I felt that digital transformation is being led from a perspective of hot air over our country, over our continent, because as a leadership, we're not actually being practical about what problem it is that we are trying to solve or where we would like to take our country, our continent, and its people. So that's it, right? As you listen to me, I would like to leave this with you. I'm not an agile expert. I'm certainly not the digital transformation expert, but I think this is worth thinking about, right? Some people have gotten to a place where they comfortably use digital transformation, interactive with the word agile, replacing it happily as they go along. That has its own implication, right? So as you listen to me, just think about this, and if you can answer this for me, please, it would be very helpful in where I'm going. I need bread and milk money. Okay. To start, when we jump into a digital transformation, as Amelia just so beautifully pointed out, the first thing to do is we need to be absolutely clear as to what our strategic intent is. And by that, I don't mean management cliches that contain words like culture or whatever it is that people are supposed to understand. If we can't articulate in plain English exactly why we are doing what we are doing, and what we are doing it for, right? How do we expect people to change? As per Amelia's presentation. So I think I'm going to just, button all of my lines with as per Amelia's presentation. No, I won't do that. But it makes the point exactly, right? So number one, a strategic intent that is clearly articulated in English by all executives, leadership, and then rolled out into the rest of the company. Followed that by measurable business outcomes. So there was a workshop, I believe, yesterday, or a talk yesterday on performance management. I wasn't here. I don't know exactly what was said there. But I believe performance management, as it pertains to digital transformation, is extremely important, right? Because metrics drive behavior, ultimately. And if ever you've seen a table of executives threatened, you will not see no transformation happening, right? So we have a responsibility to clearly associate our business outcomes with our strategic intent and make that ring and stick. And then the next thing is, no CEO is going to invest in something that doesn't add value. And adding value is not an elusive thing either. It's as simple as this. If a customer doesn't see value in what you have to offer, they're not going to pay, the company's not going to make money, and therefore we're not going to do it, right? So there must be a value contribution to the digital transformation, and this might sound easy, right? I just said it's easy. Well, for digital, it's actually not. Because digital, at some point, can become your entire IT organization, and many people can say to you, what's effectively new about digital? You know, it's been around, ones and zeros, and IP networks has been around for some time. What effectively is different? The value contribution, right, needs to speak to essentially our customers, our internal organization, and how we are going to change to be effective and efficient operationally. Next to that, the cost considerations of the digital transformation needs to be clear as well. Believe me, you don't want to be in a place where you've embarked on this beautiful strategy of changing your organization and your executive team is not prepared to invest money in it as you go along. So from the start, this needs to be the point of departure from where we move. Then there's the drafting of the plan. And the reason why I put this windy road down is in a digital transformation, drafting a plan is a schizophrenic exercise. If you've ever run a project office like I have, then you'll know a plan looks something like. In a digital transformation, not so, right? There must be something that vaguely resembles executionable tasks and pieces that is associated with realizing that strategy, but it's not necessarily sequential. Some of it stops, some of it starts, some of it relates, some of it has to be, fast-tracked because actually we never thought about starting that piece, and you in effect need somebody who can wrap their head around it and massage where the program, or there's the swear word, scrap that, where the plan is supposed to be managed from. And I think that was the chameleon of earlier. Love that concept, right? Next to a plan, ownership is absolutely imperative. Watch the executive team, right? If the transformation strategy is defined and people are talking along, nodding in the right places, leaving the room, but no one is owning it, you ain't going nowhere. Right? So there must be very clear ownership. And ideally, it shouldn't be somebody called, the digital transformation officer. No, it should be the collective of the leadership team, right? Because a digital transformation is something that affects all aspects of your organization and not just necessarily one part of your organization. Also, if we get too comfortable with having somebody called a digital transformation officer, we should ask ourselves whether we fear the future so much that we've actually put a scapegoat in a chair that we can point at, right, when things go in a specific direction. And again, I'm speaking for myself at this point in time. So we draft a plan, we establish ownership, we identify what the subsets are, we have metrics, and then we have that dreaded thing called reporting. Now, a digital transformation can't rest on manual reporting, people. So there's a schizophrenia going on here. We have a program that's a project that can't be run by a project office in a linear shape, and we can't drive governance and we can't drive reporting. So whoever is going to be driving this thing needs to be happy with living in this in-between space where it's neither the old world, neither is it the new world. So what is your toolbox for driving this digital transformation? Happy? I don't know. Let's carry on. Okay, so the plan. Typically, a digital transformation is structured around customers and offer management, right? An operating model, technology, and operations. Now, customer and offer management, how do we show up in the marketplace? What do we offer digitally? How effectively are we going to make our money? Operating model is not the same as a business model, fundamental, and also, like Amelia said, I am also not in favor of models because potential does not make money, right? Products sell and things that people buy make money. To get fixated on a model, no. An operating model effectively tries to answer how are we going to organize ourselves to service the market better. It's not the same as a business model. A business model works from, what is our asset base that essentially we can translate into something that's usable, sellable, that we can make money from. The operating model essentially forms the home of the digital transformation. And because we can't necessarily know exactly how our transformation is going to play out, we can't cast our operating model in stone. And for some people, right, who find their home in structure, that's extremely daunting. So one needs to keep that in mind, that your operating model essentially is this fluid thing that guides your transformation just enough to be there, but also just enough to hold back. Technology, I don't want to speak too much on, because I think that a lot has been said about AI, machine learning, data analytics, big data platforms, et cetera, et cetera. I think safe to say that technology is going to increase exponentially in its change and also in its intelligence, and it is what it is. The challenge is not whether technology is going to increase in its intelligence. The challenge is, how are we going to apply that intelligence and learn to become comfortable in living next to it? I was speaking to somebody over tea and saying that we are effectively in this time where, if you are holding on to an old way of interacting with technology, the sea is drawing back like a tsunami, right? And the beach is opening up, and we're going to get to a place where it's just going to rush forward and it's going to overtake those. Right? And this person said to me, yeah, lift them off the ground with the car. It's going to overtake those who, in essence, are not willing to embrace the fact that technology is going to bring about this level of change. And then operations, as innocent as it is looking there, refers to those guys in the corner who drive supply chain management, finance, your enterprise functions. We can't leave them behind. It's not just the sexy people doing the products that are part of the transformation, or the technology people developing the apps, but it's the entire organization, including your supply chain and everyone else who's in the dark corners of your business. So, the two phases of digital transformation. This is extremely, extremely important. I can't overemphasize it. So I think we get the fact that digital transformation is supposed to change how we show up in the marketplace. But if we think about it carefully, we can't expect us to service our customers differently if we are not operating in a digital manner. So we often are keen, to drive a digital service, a digital offer, but we're driving it from a what? A manual base? A paper-driven environment? Leave forms? No. So the employee journey, and also I heard that we spoke about the employee value proposition. The employee value proposition, digital value proposition, needs to go in tandem with the customer digitalization journey that the business is on. I spoke about the operating model. The operating model is an enabler for the business to deliver. I'm emphasizing this point because if ever you've been at an executive table and the operating model gets discussed, the first thing people do is what? They count the boxes, they look at the number of chairs around the table, they look at the titles, they look at their business card, and they make quick calculations. And that is where things start going wrong, right? So the objective is for the operating model to enable the business. We start off with a frame, we fill in the detail as we go, and we are open enough to adjust because we do not know how our business is going to show up over time. So, how's that, me being placed after somebody who speaks on culture, and I've got the slide on culture, shall I just skip past quickly? So, again, I agree with exactly the point that was made about identify your strategic intent for your digital transformation. Identify the aspects of your culture that will not fit the future. I wanted to put the word ruthless in there, now I'm saying it, but let's be ruthless on rooting it out, right? Identify a mechanism by which we will address the fact that these elements exist in our culture. And I think the important thing is this needs to be collaborative. This is the space where leadership needs to become part of team. It can't be a leadership-driven thing. It can't just be the teams trying to shift culture and leadership is being left behind. No. But there needs to be a collaborative space where we can define our culture as to what we want to look like and start working on it in a place together. I also put there, start with leadership. So, because my underlying argument here is that leadership is the fundamental enabler of any digital transformation. Right? We can do as well as we can, possibly, but if we do not address where our leadership culture and behavior is sitting at, we're going to become unstuck extremely fast. So, Number one, who leads the transformation? And you'll be surprised how the ball moves in the room as the transformation progresses, and that's fine, because the transformation places emphasis in different parts of the organization as we go. But you never find yourself in a place where the transformation is not owned, right? There's a difference between ownership versus participation. And my third point there feeds into the second one. Notice the conversation outside the room. If the conversation outside the room doesn't align with the conversation inside the room, you've got a problem. Things are not being owned. People are talking along, and they're holding on to exactly where we are at the moment. So our priorities are reflected in our actions. And what does that actually mean? You know, when the going gets tough and we need to invest in change, we need to invest in communication, we actually do not put the money where it's necessary, right? We're in the middle of this digital transformation and we're half pregnant and we sort of move on to something else. That is where you see, right, where we are actually invested as a leadership team. So the behavior of leadership as we show up amongst our teams and in our organization plays a huge part in how our culture shapes. Learning from failure is not the strength of the organization that I come from, right? So we learn, but we quickly, like the Empress cloak or die koning se kleed. I don't know how many of you know that story. We quickly want to hide our nakedness and run away. So we're not comfortable living in the moment and actually staying with the failure and learning from it. And that's something I think a lot of turmoil, trauma, and unnecessary expense can be avoided if we become comfortable with staying with our failures in business. Just a little longer. So people in change, right? My passion, invest in change management and communication. I'm an engineer, I'm not taking it for granted, right? That change management is something that we need to do properly and not assume that it will happen by itself. We can't over-communicate either, but I think the basis for communication is actually listening, and not speaking first, but listening first. So another passion of mine is, why don't we ensure that the skills and roles that we need for the digital future is made clear, right? So that people have options, so that they can decide for themselves where they want to go, right? And we offer mechanisms for people to reskill, but we need to start becoming comfortable with the fact that we need to open up potential opportunities and make it clear for people as to where they can go to aid the digital future as to where the organization wants to be. And I think the third one is an extremely difficult one for anybody who is in a senior leadership role with a heart for people like we all do. Robotics process automation will automate certain jobs away, right? The challenge is not whether robotics process automation will automate certain jobs away. The challenge is where will opportunities arise for people to go? And I think this is my bugbear for South Africa, Africa, and Industrial Revolution 4. I feel as a country, as a continent, we're taking on Industrial Revolution 4 with its identity coming out of Europe and America, and we're applying it in an economy that's got high unemployment rates. What we should be doing is we should be thinking innovatively about what digital can do for society, and therefore where opportunities can potentially open up, right? And start repositioning our skill base towards those opportunities. I want to say it again, the reality is automation will automate certain jobs away. If we don't implement digitalization, we'll be left behind as a society. But how we implement it and what we do with it is up to us. So, technology platforms, yes, exponential change. Yes, it's here to take the monotonous away. It's also here to make sense of the complicated mathematical algorithms that all of us don't necessarily want to do associated with Excel reporting in big organizations, right? It's a business model cornerstone. With technology, big data analytics, and AI, right, we can become so much smarter, so much faster. We need to embrace it. It can be an enabler, and an inhibitor of execution, right? If you're a big organization, you know exactly what I mean. You can't get away from a major capital investment. We can't all start behaving like we're a business operating in a garage. We need to take into consideration that we do have an existing investment, and we need to think smartly as to how we're going to play out on top of that existing investment. So the last point there is tool up. Let's tool up. And what I mean by tool up, let's tool our people up, right? Let's not expect our people to live in a manual world and they need to make digital offers, you know, an attractive reality for our customer base. So in brief, know the why of the digital transformation, right? And have a flexible plan. Do not worship at the throne of the linear project management plan, please. Decide on business outcomes that will add value to your customers, right? And your business, not just your customers. Draft a wireframe operating model, something that you can, you know, mold and shape as you go. And see the leadership behavior for what it is. See the leadership behavior for what it is and manage it. So, that's me. Thank you.